Just because we don't use the noose to hang people anymore as punishment doesn't mean that knots aren't useful in everyday life. Most of us use a knot every day to tie our shoes in the morning so that we can have a safe, effective day without our shoe flying off and bonking somebody in the head. Today I'm going to discuss 3 different knots that I think are very useful. The first knot is the square knot that uses 2 of the same size pieces of rope and hitches them together. The second knot is going to be the sheet bend, which hitches together 2 different size pieces, and I used a lot when my kids were younger. And the third uses 1 piece of rope, and it's called the bowline, which is also called the safety line, and I believe it to be the best knot that there is. Use it all the time. So let's get started. For the square knot, 2 pieces of rope. You do left over right and under, and then you do right over left and under, and then everything lines up. You get your 2 pigtails on the same side. You can grab a hold of this and slide it back and forth, and you can tighten it up and pull on it, and it will hold as long as it's got load. But as soon as you let load go, it'll come untied, which is the issue with tying your shoes. Tying your shoes is just a square knot with the 2 little bunny ears, and that's why it comes untied all the time. You see here that I did not double this, so if this shoe was on my daughter, it would probably come untied in a half hour because it's also kind of loose. Now there is another knot that people confuse with the square knot, and that's called the granny knot, and that's where you go left over right and through, and then left over right and through again. This knot does not hold as well. It's ugly for one thing. It's not as nice looking, but it doesn't hold as well, and it comes untied even easier because it started coming untied under load. The only reason that's holding is because I have my ends taped so it doesn't fray. Now when you tie a shoe, if you tie a granny knot, your loops, your bunny ears will go up and down. When you tie a square knot, they go side to side like this and lay nice. So check out your shoes in the morning and see which knot you're tying. If you're tying the granny knot, then correct it and make sure you tie the square knot, and then your loops will fall to the side nicely. The second knot that I'm going to show you is called the sheet bend, and this knot is great because it ties 2 different size pieces of rope together, which I think is incredible because when can you ever find 2 of the same pieces of rope? I mean, I did tonight, but that's not the norm. Usually you get little scraps and tidbits and shoelaces and whatnot everywhere, and you might need something longer. So start with your bigger piece, fold it back over like this. This is called a bite. You're going to make a bite with your big piece, always the big piece, and then you're going to fish this skinny piece up from the bottom through the hole, back, down, and behind where we went up, and then you're going to fish it back through the loop. Okay, so now you kind of made an X around it. You pull that tight, and it holds as long as it's got load. If it doesn't have load, same thing with this. You can untie it real easy. This is the knot that they used to use to tie sails down. Sails used to be called sheets. And so I'm going to use this bandana here, and I'll show you how to tie it to material. I used to use this knot a lot when my children were little because they always wanted to build forts with their friends when they had these massive sleepovers. And by using this knot, I could tie off the sheets at a higher place, and they could fit under it. And they could have it for a whole weekend or whatever, and they loved it. And I do it with my nephews now too that are younger. So that's how it holds. So you can imagine if you make a fort with your kids or your nephews or nieces, whoever, you can tie it up a little higher instead of having to tuck it under a mattress or whatever, and it always came undone. This way it won't come undone. You can keep it for a while. My kids have had forts sometimes for upwards of a week if we made them long enough, and the sheet bend was always part of that. So my final knot that I'm going to show you is called the bowline. The bowline is called the safety line also because One of the nice things about this is after you make it, the loop will not close up on itself. It'll stay the size that you make it, and it won't slip. So let me show you the classic way that I learned how to tie this when I was a little kid in Scouts. You're going to make this loop, and this bottom piece is going to come up. Okay. Then you take this end, and this is the bunny. The bunny comes up from the hole, out of the hole, goes around the tree, and back down into the hole. If you tie this right, this end will be on the outside of the loop. And what will happen is I can put my hand in here, and we can pull as hard as we want. See, I'm shaking, I'm pulling so hard. It will not close up on itself. So if we made this bigger, I could sit inside the loop, and I could be pulled up to safety. There is a way to tie this one-handed. I know how. I don't have enough time or enough rope right now to show you, but it is awesome. And if you were ever somewhere and had an injured arm, you'd be able to pull yourself up. Now you saw how easy that came untied. That's one of the nice things about a bowline is it doesn't use your rope forever. Some knots you tie into your rope you can't get undone, and now you've got a piece of rope that always has a knot in it. With the bowline, you can use it. It holds well. It's a great knot, and then you can just shake it a couple times. It'll come and tie. The nice thing with a bowline is you can make two tie bowline, and then you can tie another bowline through it to hitch two pieces of rope together that won't come undone. That'll be very sturdy. And that's one of the reasons I just think it's an incredible knot, and a knot that I tie all the time when I'm tying down loads in the truck. And in general, just doing stuff when I was in the military. We had to do tower climbing, tower rescue, all this stuff. Pulling cable through manholes, some of the cable that was like this big around, and we used the bowline all the time on all those tasks. So, and it's a knot that I learned when I was little, and I've been using it all my life. So we went over the square knot, which is the knot that you tie your shoes with, that hitches two of the same pieces of rope and gets confused with the granny knot. We talked about the sheet bend, which hitches two different size pieces of rope together, or was used to tie sails down. And we talked about the bowline, which is the safety line, and that's the loop that will not tighten up on itself and is very sturdy. It can be used to pull people up to safety or pull stuff in general, and it's just got numerous uses. And I think these knots incorporated into your life will be very handy. Practice a little bit. There's some good sites that you can check out on YouTube to show you how to tie different knots. And there's another of other knots that I think are incredible that I just didn't have time to show you tonight. If you got any questions, send me an email, and I'll send you a link to or another message back with some other knots that you might be interested in. Thank you.